Here's your shot at winning $1,000. Text the national keyword play right now to 95819. That's PLAY to 95819. We'll text you back to confirm your entry. Data and messaging rates may apply. Please don't text and drive. It's 5K a day on WMAL. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:07 on O'Connor and Company. Good Friday morning to you. It's Larry and Patrice getting you where you need to go on this third day of the government shutdown. We'll give you all the details as we learn them, as we do have a vote coming up in the Senate today. At 7:35, John Lott will tell us why the FBI still won't fix their crime statistics. At 8:05, Jim Hansen on the terror attack in England. And at 8:35, Representative Herodopoulos on the shutdown. Larry and Patrice. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry. Happy Friday.
Amen. Ready for this weekend. Navy Air Force weekend, by the way. Big game tomorrow in Annapolis. Everyone pay attention.
Avoid Annapolis unless you're going to the game, pretty much.
Well, yeah, and it's and the powerboat show. Yeah, it's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
It's a scene in Annapolis. But the first game for the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, which I believe Navy won last year, if my memory serves. Yes, I believe that's correct. Joining us right now, J. Christian Adams, president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation, to help us out with a couple of curious stories out there about our voting system. Christian, always good to talk to you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, guys.
So we learned about this wackadoodle story about the superintendent of schools in Des Moines who was in the country illegally and had lots of criminal history and all that. But we also found out that he was registered to vote in Maryland. And I don't know, you've been following it, I'm sure. Have we gotten a clear answer as to whether he actually voted or not? Is there a way to know whether he voted or not?
Yeah, there's a way to know. The Public Interest Legal Foundation sent an NVRA motor voter document request to Maryland this week, and we'll get the answer shortly. From what I've seen, it looks like he may not have voted because there's no activity on the files screenshot I saw. Okay. But that really shouldn't matter because he should have been removed from the rolls, Larry. If he hadn't been voting for the last 14 years, Maryland dropped the ball here and should have knocked him off the rolls, but they didn't.
That's right. And let's just be clear here, because I know that your organization, Public Interest Legal Foundation, you've gone to war with a lot of these states to make sure that they keep those voter rolls clean. And isn't it true that there's a standing Justice Department order specifically for the state of Maryland to do just that?
Well, look, they have an obligation under the National Voter Registration Act, Motor Voter 93, Bill Clinton, most people remember, to keep voter rolls clean. And that's just their obligation already. Nobody needs to order them to do anything because Congress already did so. But if this guy had been on the roll since 12 and not voting, he should have been removed. But that's Maryland for you. They don't make them real high priority.
Well, I mean, what can we do? Both Larry and I are Maryland residents, and this is frustrating, and because we wonder how many other people whose immigration status are questionable. They should not be voting, in my opinion, anyway, unless you're a naturalized citizen like I am, or a native-born citizen. What can we do to force this as an issue with the Maryland legislature, or who should this issue be forced with? Governor Wes Moore?
Well, don't forget, Patrice, in Maryland, aliens and non-citizens can register to vote in certain localities. Silver Spring, Tacoma Park. Yeah. Maryland has already made a legislative decision to let foreigners participate in local elections. And that's because Maryland's legislature is beyond hope. They're not going to do anything to make this better. They'll do something probably to make it worse.
So what needs to be done? I mean, it's remarkable to me, and yet not remarkable at all, that Democrats pushed this through in the early 90s, motor voter, which made it way too easy to register to vote with really no checks or back. I've gotten my driver's license in Maryland, and you do a little touchscreen thing, and it says, do you want to register to vote? And you click yes, and then it asks if you're a citizen, and you say yes, and that's it. There's no check. You don't have to show any ID. You don't have to prove that you're a citizen. You're just on your word here. But the law, when this was passed in 93, said, you have to, you must, every state must keep these voter rolls clean, and they've neglected that. So what's the penalty mechanism there?
Okay, firstly, Larry, Public Interest Legal Foundation has a case going to the Supreme Court, cert petition, that touches on this very issue of how clean must the voter rolls be. It's out of Michigan. I'm sure we could talk about that another time.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Most of these aliens are getting on the rolls through the motor voter process. They're doing it when they go to DMV. And they're getting licenses in Maryland because Maryland wants apparently everybody to be fully integrated into the system. And so the answer to this is to have a system set up where you aren't just flashing through screens, where you actually have to do something more than hit a button to establish you're a citizen. The Justice Department should prosecute this guy. This violated federal law. Where's the indictment? Let's go, guys. You cannot register to vote and not be an American without violating a criminal statute under federal law. So let's count the days till he's indicted.
Very good. All right, let's switch gears a little bit to this crazy story in Maine, where a woman who was doing what many of us do, ordering from Amazon, had a package delivered with over 250 authentic blank state elections ballots. It mixed in with her plates and her rice or whatever she ordered from Amazon. How could this have happened? And who's responsible here?
Yeah, Patrice, I can't figure this out. I've been thinking about this, and this is like these two things should never intersect. There should never be an Amazon delivery with ballots, and there's literally no way this can happen. So it makes me wonder what is going on here. Did this really happen? I mean, this is impossible. It shouldn't happen. Nobody just has ballots laying around at the Amazon warehouse, and she can't just vote them. That's the other thing. You can't just like mail in ballots and say, count these. It doesn't work that way. So none of this makes any sense.
It's a weird story. And by the way, ironically, the November 4th referendum that these ballots represented would require photo ID for voting in the state of Maine. So, yeah, there's something super fishy about that story. Meanwhile, in California, they've got a statewide referendum of their own. This is Gavin Newsom's scheme to redistrict outside of the confines of the state constitution, because we're Democrats. We can make it up as we go along. And yet, with the voter guide that is mandatory by state law for every voter to see before they actually cast their ballot in November, the guide has the wrong map showing the boundaries of the redistricting. And now they say, oh, we'll fix that. We'll send a postcard out that points people to a website to see the map. But that card won't go out before early voting starts. Sounds to me like this whole vote is null and void already, Christian.
Well, that would be nice, because I think it's a racial draw, but that's another story. That to me, it violates federal law. But look, guys, elections are never perfect. You got to realize that. They're never going to be perfect. They're chaotic. They have mistakes. We have a tie election database, 700 elections decided by a tie or one vote. And that's why it makes a difference. You have to have only eligible voters voting. But this California story, guys, this is a direct partisan attack on Texas, because Texas is redistricting. So California is doing it too. And we'll see what happens there. I suspect we're going to see a lot of litigation. Yeah,
I agree. Thankfully, whenever there's litigation involved with elections and voter laws, the Public Interest Legal Foundation, led by J. Christian Adams, is always on the right side of those fights and wins more often than not. So keep up your winning streak, J. Christian Adams.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you for joining
us.
us.
Take care.
WMAL, making sense of the news, live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. Your next $1,000 could be one text away. It's $5K a day on WMAL.
We've got an update on the Virginia election, which is now about 4 weeks away. Crazy how close it is, actually. A lot of news reports yesterday touting this Emerson poll. There was an Emerson poll that broke late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, showing Spanberger ahead by 10 points. By the way, again, Republicans notoriously are undercounted in Virginia. They always get Virginia wrong, because all of the turnout models and all of the polling seems to just pretend like Republicans are non-existent in this state. That said, that was the big news yesterday. Spanberger up by 10. And yet the day before, there was a poll that showed Spanberger up by only 3. And then late yesterday afternoon, early this morning, you had another poll that came out that showed Spanberger only up by 5. In other words, kind of all over the map right now. But the only thing that's getting
Absolutely.
repeated everywhere is the poll from Emerson that shows Spanberger up by 10. I hope every news outlet that spent all morning yesterday saying a new poll shows Spanberger up by 10 now has an equally loud and clear news report this morning that says new poll shows that Winsome Sears is narrowing the gap and she's only down by 5. The bottom line is polling at this point is inexact at the least. I remember Youngkin was behind the entire time 4 years ago until right before the election. In my opinion, this race in Virginia right now is neck and neck. It's all about turnout. So instead of looking at the polls, let's look at turnout numbers because those are real numbers, real data, Patrice. And it turns out, well, the turnout looks pretty good for Winsome Sears. Let me explain. For her to win, she needs to really get the deep red counties to come out in full force for her, right? Because it's going to get offset in some ways by Northern Virginia. She's not going to win Fairfax County, but she needs a good turnout there. And the turnout that Spanberger gets needs to be just absolutely obliterated by the really passionate red counties south and west of here. And here's what that's looking like. Let's start with 2024. Now, this is an analysis done, by the way, by who did this analysis for me? Hang on. This is Eric Doherty, I believe. Yes, Eric Doherty, who is a political commentator, assistant news director for Florida Voice News. He used to live up here in the area, but he is really plugged in, even though he lives in Florida, on local politics. He's broken down the early return numbers and turnout for early voting. When you look at the red counties, the counties that Trump won in 2024, okay, these are just the counties that Trump won. In 2024, those counties came out for Trump 72.8% versus Kamala Harris, right? Right now, and in the that was the turnout in 2024. Right now, for Winsome Sears, in those same counties that came out for Trump in 72.8%, she's seeing a return of 73.2%. Now, let me be clear. You don't know how those people voted. But if they voted based on party affiliation, Winsome Sears right now is 1 percentage point ahead of where Trump was last year.
Wow. And this is during an off-year election, so you don't have a president on the ballot.
That's
I think this bodes well, but certainly should continue to fire up Republicans to early vote. There's still plenty of time to do that. And then to turn out on Election Day. I mean, I think Republicans in Virginia recognize that the stakes are really high. But even more, and also that this is absolutely winnable. Absolutely winnable. Win for Winsome, I think.
That's right. And by the way, Kamala Harris did about a 68.9% turnout in her counties. So far, Abigail Spanberger in deep blue counties, 66.6%. So she's running behind Kamala Harris from last year. So this is all very, very good data for Winsome Sears and for Republicans. Also, as I mentioned, there was that 0.3% poll. There was the Emerson poll, 3% poll showing Spanberger up by 3 points. You also had the Emerson poll that I just mentioned showing Spanberger up by 10 points. But then you've got this other poll. Where did it go? This is the Newport News shows Spanberger up by 12 points. Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, showed Spanberger up by 9 points. But then you had, where'd the poll go up that showed her
There's
up?
There's the A2 Insights poll that has Spanberger up by 3 points.
Yeah, that's the 3 point. It was the 5 point. It was Trafalgar Group. Trafalgar Group shows Spanberger up by 5 points. So suffice to say, it's all over the place, ranging from 3 points to 12 points. But those two polls, the A2 Insights and the Trafalgar, those don't get as much attention. Also, the coefficient poll shows her up by 6 points. Either way, Spanberger was up by 17 points.
Absolutely.
Just 3 months ago.
And what one harbinger I look at is just the types of ads that I see running in the morning when I'm not listening to WMAL and I'm making sandwiches, watching local news. Sometimes it happens, but the polls I see in the evening news, or the ads, what do they focus on? Spanberger is pulling out now abortion. which tells me that that's a desperation tactic. I've seen that abortion ad run a couple of times. And then also Spamberger has an ad where she's denying that she has 3 daughters, and she's denying that she's standing up for parents, or that she's against parents' rights. So that tells me that Winsome Sears and the ads that she's connected to are very effective, because they are leaning in on Spamberger, and Spamberger voting against protecting girls and women's sports, etc.
Yes, I agree. The fact that she's only responding to that issue in a pre-produced and market-tested ad rather than actually discussing it in real time tells you something. And the fact that she's going to the abortion issue right now.
It's a desperation tactic.
That tells you that she's desperate. 4 weeks out, and she's talking about abortion. And that ad about Winsome Sears, she calls Winsome Sears extreme on abortion. And what quote does she use from Winsome Sears to prove that? You have Winsome Sears saying that she believes that abortion is wicked. I hate to tell you this, Abigail Spamberger, but the extreme position is to not believe that abortion is wicked. You can want it to be legal, but if you don't think that killing an unborn baby is not wicked, that's extreme. Meanwhile, Winsome Sears, take a listen to her latest ad, cut 16.
I'm Winsome Earl Sears, candidate for governor, and I sponsored this ad.
Abigail Spamberger has zero excuse. My son shared urinals with a girl who claimed she's a boy. My daughter competed against men in track. And the transgender predator who exposed himself in school showers? Sick. Spamberger wrote a law to make this stuff legal. That's not just disgusting, it's disqualifying. I can't vote for Abigail Spamberger.
That's right. There it is.
That's an effective ad. That's an effective ad right
It's
there.
an effective ad exactly where Spamberger needs to run up the score with suburban moms in Northern Virginia. It's 7:24.
All right, coming up, we've got John Lott from the Crime Prevention Research Center to give us an update on what the FBI has actually accomplished. Great stuff on the way. It's 7:30 on O'Connor and Company.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:36 now as this Friday morning charges forward here in your nation's capital, this third day of the government shutdown, also known as October 3rd. 8:05 brings us Jim Hansen on the terror attacks in the UK, and then at 8:35, Representative Mike Haradopoulos on the government shutdown. Larry and Patrice. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody.
Back at you. You'll remember during the debate, the presidential debate between President Trump and Kamala Harris. Remember that? Remember when Kamala Harris thought she was going to be president? And there was a moment when David Muir, the so-called moderator for ABC News, fact-checked Donald Trump. You remember about a claim that he made with regard to crime in America. Here, let me remind you of this moment.
Down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof. Despite their fraudulent statements that they made, crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But
there you go. David Muir with his fraudulent fact check. As you know, the FBI says the crime is going down. And all of us living in the real world knew that the FBI can say whatever they want. We know that crime is up in this country. And it turns out, quietly, 1 month after that moment on the debate stage, the FBI stealthily changed their data on their website.
Oh, boy. There you go.
They revised the FBI crime data and said they missed 1,699 murders in 2022.
They missed 1,600 murders?
They missed it. Now, those of us who have been paying attention to this over the course of the many years know that during the Biden administration, at the very beginning, the FBI changed their systems, their database, and the entire program that they use to keep nationwide crime statistics. multiple cities around the country, big cities in this country. Michael Shelton, it's fine. We're moving on. Thank you for trying, but we're done there. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, everybody. The multiple big cities around this country had not changed their database and their systems to interact properly with the FBI system. So what did they do? The FBI just sort of estimated what crime was. We're talking about cities like Los Angeles and Chicago and Baltimore. And, there's hardly any crime in those jurisdictions, Patrice, right? So the numbers were always sort of underreported as to what the actual number was. But the people in the media and the government and the politicians, they would only go by the FBI crime statistic database, even though they knew that it was fraudulent. They knew that it was dirty numbers. John Lott from Real Clear Investigations, and also he, of course, is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. He did a deep dive into all of those numbers. He's the one, by the way, who discovered that the FBI had made a stealth change to their crime statistics, suddenly discovering 1,700 murders that they had never reported before. He now has a new report, and I really want you all to read it. It's published over at Real Clear Investigations. And the fact is, the FBI still refuses to clean up their crime data. This is, and listen, I know Director Patel has a lot of priorities right now, and he is focused on cleaning up a bunch of the mess that he inherited. But this is incredibly important for him to prioritize because these numbers are used for policy decisions at the federal, state, and local level. And it underreports exactly how bad the crime situation is. According to John Lott, he says that they still have not cleaned up these numbers and fixed the way they're recording the data. And when asked to comment, the FBI declined to make a statement for his report.
You know what? So here are the implications that I see from something like this. It is that a lot of leftists who have latched on to the misleading and misguided idea that somehow you can release violent criminals. You don't have to hold them after you've charged them. You could just let them go, cashless bail or whatever the case is. That somehow it's wrong to incarcerate too many people, especially the violent ones. They use crime data like this to suggest that over time crime has come down as a result of their policies. And so they use that as justification to say, well, wait a minute, what are you all talking about? We let people out all the time and crime is falling. So you guys are the naysayers. So that's why I think it really is not just from a statistical, let's get the data right perspective, but really from the policy implication perspective, because right now we've got two warring opinions on what do you do about violent criminals, despite the fact that we know recidivism is higher with violent criminals. They're the ones who come out and then they keep committing a lot of the crimes in this country. Yeah. But when you have a narrative that says, oh, but crime is falling, at the same time you have people who are saying, well, we could just let them out, we don't need to hold them, then it gives this false data gives cover for the false narrative and the false policy positions.
Yeah, and I'm hoping maybe we had trouble connecting with John Lott this morning, but hopefully we can have him on Monday because it's an incredibly important story.
Yeah, this is important.
But one of the biggest issues in how the FBI is keeping database of crime here has to do with so-called gun crime. And I say so-called because if you are using a gun to defend yourself, if you are under attack or if your home is under attack and you use your legally owned and obtained and constitutionally protected right to bear arms,
yes,
the FBI doesn't count it as a defensive use of gun. They don't actually take any records on that. They don't actually see it. And actually, in some cases, those incidents end up being cataloged as a criminal use of a gun and a firearm. So it's added to the mix. Look at all of these gun deaths and gun tragedies in this country. In some cases, they're not a tragedy. They're actually a heroic, happy ending.
That's right.
And by the way, they also don't divide the amount of gun crime that happens in a gun-free zone versus a non-gun-free zone.
Very important information
that's
to know.
important information. Yeah, if you're going to keep crime
Absolutely.
statistics, actually, listen, it's a long article. It's a detailed article, and I think you should all go check it out at Real Clear Investigations by the great John Lott. And we'll continue to follow up on this, and hopefully we'll hear something from the FBI. They should comment on this. They should explain that they understand the problem and that they're going to fix it. It's 7:44.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
For one reason or another, and I don't even want to venture to guess why, the Democrats in Fairfax County are really intent on making sure that little girls in public school restrooms and locker rooms have naked men exposing themselves to them. Again, you can figure out why, but they're bound and determined. As you know, the Department of Education has cut off federal funding for that school system because they insist on these so-called transgender policies that allow men to do just that. Mm-hmm. They took the federal government to court to sue them. The federal court said, no, you don't have a case. Go away. They have appealed it. And by the way, this is all your tax dollars that are going to pay for these incredibly high-priced lawyers. And you know what? A really smart investigative journalist should probably look into the law firms that are making money from the Fairfax County School Board and the board and the Fairfax County Public School System to fight these losing battles in federal court and see if there's any connections between the lawyers at those law firms and the elected officials on the school board. I'm just saying that would be a really interesting investigative report. Anyway, they just lost now in the appeals court as well, so they lose round two. Let's see if they finally adhere to the Department of Education and the new standards with regard to men being men. By the way, they're not new standards. They're old standards, that men are men and women are women, and that men should not go into women's private spaces. Let's see if they continue to waste your tax dollars on that. But another victory for the children of Fairfax County, but it'll only be a victory if the Fairfax County School Board actually changes their policies to adhere with the law. One other point real fast. Governor Glenn Youngkin just issued yet another executive order on this, making it very clear to every Virginia school system that they must comply with these laws. Abigail Spanberger disagrees, by the way, and if she becomes governor, you know what will happen. Go ahead, Patrice.
Oh, terrific, and good on Governor Youngkin. There are other, Fairfax County is not the only county in violation of Title IX. Loudoun County Public Schools, Prince William County, and Alexandria City Public Schools are all in violation of Title IX. But you know what? To them, this is about giving a thumb to the administration, and it's about fighting for a trans policy that is unpopular and that is unwanted, but it's part of the Democratic platform right now. So I believe they want this to go to the Supreme Court. I suspect that's where they want to take this.
It's part of the Democrat platform, and also really important, it's part of the funding structure for campaigns and for political action committees for Democrats. Abigail Spanberger, as you know, when you rank jurisdictions or geographic locations as to where she raised the most money, out of state and the District of Columbia are higher ranked in terms of where the money came from for her campaign. Virginia comes in third place. So the people outside Virginia are the ones who really want Abigail Spanberger to win. And I will tell you, groups like the Human Rights Campaign, which has deep, deep pockets, and major funding sources outside of the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, that are intent on pushing the LGBTQ plus agenda, that's where a lot of this money is coming from. And that's why she and other Democrats are willing to die on this 80-20 hill, where they are on the 20 side of this equation. She's just hoping that the people of Virginia ignore it, that they're not paying attention, and they'll buy her word salad when she's asked about this issue, because all she'll say is, well, I have 3 daughters and it matters to me. Well, apparently it doesn't, because she has voted for policies and will continue to uphold policies that allow her own daughters to have to be exposed to a naked man against their consent. Period. End of discussion. 7:53.